So cool. I don't have to say that anymore now that Zoom does it on its own. Eric, welcome to Beers with Bill. It's my pleasure tonight, everybody, to welcome Eric Saulis, one of the founders of the Indigenous Brew crew.
Thank you.
It's great to have you on, Eric. Thank you. So, you going to talk to us a little bit about the Pilsner?
Yeah, I'll just crack it here and pour it out. So this Pilsner was brewed for a local restaurant here in Ottawa. Well, technically in Carp, which is just outside of Ottawa, called the Cheshire Cat. And they do a lot of really good British food. They, did great things during COVID. They brought in a lot of different beers for people to try from around the country or province, and always had something new to try. And they're always a good partner with Kitchissippi, so designed this Pilsner. And we have a German brewmaster, so it is Reinheitsgebot, and it's super crushable, very malty, and yeah, I think it's one of the nicer tasting beers that we have right now.
Very classic Pilsner style.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about the Indigenous Brew crew.
Yeah, so there's 3 members, or our founding members. There's myself, Mark Solomon, and Seguin Sailors. And we all met because of Ren, as most people in the beer world these days do, is because of Ren. Mark had been looking for other Indigenous brewers in Ontario, and I had met her a couple of years before, and she told him that I was brewing at Dominion City at the time. So Mark reached out to me, and then he had heard about Seguin up in Muskoka. So he ended up reaching out to Seguin, and yeah, it was just, we all got together and we're like, hey, we're Indigenous, we're all brewing, we all want to kind of have the same goal of, destigmatizing alcohol in the Indigenous community, because I know that one of the big, images that everyone kind of has is that drunken Indian kind of thing. And, we hate it. There's definitely a healthy relationship with alcohol that can be formed. So we're just trying to, break down some barriers and have a safe space for people to discuss alcohol in Indigenous communities across Canada, the United States, wherever we can reach to.
Now my mind just skipped. I was thinking of what my next question was going to be. Yeah. Eric, I'm curious, how was it that you met Ren?
So when I was at Dominion City, it was my first, I don't know, probably 6 months of being there. And they asked Ren to come up to talk to everyone. She did a talk in the tap room, and staff was allowed to be there. It was a ticketed event, so people who were not staff had to buy a ticket for it. And Ren just talked about, beer diversity and what she's doing. And at the end of it all, I was standing in the back of the room with my sister and a couple of my coworkers, and I was just like, oh my God, Ren's so cool. Like, yeah. I want to talk to her, but I'm so scared. And luckily, after we had a couple drinks, and then we decided to go out for a couple more drinks afterwards, and then we were just kind of standing outside of Flora Hall having some Domino's pizza, because it was literally right next door. And Ren was like, I want pizza. So yeah, just went and got a large pepperoni pizza and turned into 3 large pepperoni pizzas, and we were all just standing around talking. And by the end of the night, Ren and I had realized that we love basically the exact same things. And yeah, she's just someone I've really admired and respect a lot. And yeah, it's been at least 4 years that I've known her, I think. So
she is such a neat person, that's for sure.
Oh yeah,
very accepting and very knowledgeable about what she does.
Oh yeah, and she gives the best hugs too.
I haven't had a hug from Ren. I'll have to find that one out when we finally are in person again.
Yeah, she gives the best hugs. They just have the most love behind them. So
well, she is a loving person, that's for sure. Oh, yeah. So Dominion City was sort of not quite your first job after you got out of Niagara Beer College. You did have a stint at Big Rig, did you not?
Yeah. So after Niagara, I started at Big Rig. I did 2 years there. I started off in the cellar, just like, my job was to clean a tank and then clean the brew house. And I think I worked 12-hour days for about the first 3 months, just trying to figure out what the hell I was doing. And then I moved into doing some filtration, which was another beast altogether. And then helped out doing some deliveries, some packaging back in the cellar, doing more filtration, and then started brewing. And I had about, oh God, I think I did about 18 months of just straight brewing. And yeah, it was, a factory. So you just go in and you make beer. And then the next day you make more beer. And yeah, it's just constant turnover of making a lot of beer. And it was kind of a trial by fire situation. You just have to do it.
That's true. It's a big step going from the college to actually having to brew beer every day.
Yeah, no, it's completely different than the college. So it was interesting to go back to the college after I'd been gone for a while, because I looked at everything and thought, wow, this is so tiny. And when I was there, I thought, this is so big.
Well, I was going to ask you about that because I was reading that when you were at Dominion City, you and Jacinda Wade and the owner himself, Josh, went down and did a collaborative brew at the college. Did you not?
Yeah. So every Wednesday they do beer club. And so they ask other breweries from around Ontario to come in. I think they even had someone from Brazil one time come in and just, talk to students about what it's like in the industry, and, just share some examples of the beers that we make and stuff like that. So I was really interested in doing that. I had, my cousin was there at the time, and some other friends of mine were down at the college. So I was, super interested in going. Jacinda hadn't been down there in probably 4 or 5 years. So she was excited to go back and see everybody. And yeah, we made a, shockingly for Dominion City, a hazy IPA. And it turned out pretty well. The students were great. We got to talk in front of, I think at that time was the largest crowd, and it was about 75 people showed up for that one. A couple friends of mine from school who were back down there working at breweries came out too, just to hang out. And yeah, it was a great time. It's a lot of fun to go back down there and give back to the students, and pass on what little wisdom I have to pass on to them.
I imagine after 3-4 years in the industry, you have a little bit more than a little wisdom to pass on, Eric. So you were a graduate of Carleton and BA in history, were you not?
So I never actually graduated. I attended Carleton somewhat. I realized pretty quickly that history wasn't what I wanted to do, but I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. So I kept enrolling at Carleton and paying for the classes and attending one or two of them, and showing up to hand in assignments, and the professors looking at me and asking, "Are you sure you're supposed to be here?" So I did that for a few years. I worked in catering. I worked in food. I've done pretty much everything you could possibly do in the food world. And yeah, at that point it was, Carleton, I just kind of stopped paying them to, take my money and me not do anything with it. And yeah, so just continued doing food. Got really interested in food. Was, pretty, I'd like to say, decent bartender. And yeah, it just came to a head of, what did I want to do? And I was super lucky at the time. My roommate knew all of the guys at the clock tower. And so I went in there and I talked at them for about 2 hours about why I should come in and do some free brewing for them. And after about 10 minutes, they said, okay, yeah, for sure. And I just didn't shut up. And finally they're like, okay, well, come in tomorrow then. Like, just get some boots and come in. So I went in there and I got the bug and immediately applied to the college, and yeah, got in there and had a great time.
Well, that answered the question. I was going to say, what was the inspiration to go from there to Niagara College?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so that was kind of neat to work at the clock tower and get that bug and apply to the college.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
great fun. They were all really nice people. And again, I mean, you can't pass up free labor, right? So
No, usually people can. You're basically an Ottawa native,
yep.
but you spent some informative years in Tokyo. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So my dad works for foreign affairs, and he we were getting to the point of we were all in high school, and my dad was thinking, I think it'd be a good time to go on a posting. And it was grade I was going into grade 10, and we got posted to Tokyo, and I thought, okay, well, this is awesome. It's somewhere different. I've never been there before. I'm super excited to see what it's going to be like. Um, I thought for sure I'd have like crazy culture shock going over there, and when I got there, I realized that Tokyo is a beast all into itself. You don't get culture shock by going to Tokyo. You get culture shock by leaving Tokyo. And I had an absolutely great time there. 3 years of high school. Um, I was a varsity wrestler in a wrestling heavy school. So I literally had like fans, like people would stop me in the hallways at school being like, "Oh, I saw you last night. That was great." And I'd be like, "Oh, I don't know you, but thanks." um, I was also the largest guy in school. So people tended to be a little bit scared of me. Um, just because I was so big compared to everyone else, but you know, I was I was only mean when I was wrestling. I was really nice. So yeah.
I can totally understand that you would be mean in wrestling. I only went to one of my daughter's wrestling matches when she was doing varsity wrestling, and I was like, I am never going back to watch that again. She
Yeah, that's
scared me.
that's kind of the reaction my parents had too. It was, just seeing me flying around on the mat, and like I was the opposite of most wrestlers. I had to put on weight to make my weight class. I had to gain about 5 pounds a day to make sure I maintained my weight, whereas everyone else was losing weight. And it was really funny having the younger kids coming up to me and asking me, "Oh, what should I do to cut weight?" I'm like, I don't know. I can tell you what to do to gain weight. I had permission from the principal to eat and drink in class, so it was good, but it was also terrible.
I can imagine that's quite a unique stature to be in. Yep, you
Yeah,
can eat and drink in class because you need to put weight on to wrestle.
yeah. Oh, it was crazy. So yeah. Unfortunately, my body still thinks I'm trying to make weight. So
That's a function that we all run into when we get older, Eric. Sorry. It never goes away.
yeah.
So, what is your fondest memory of Tokyo?
Um. Ooh, I I think it was just like the feeling of like belonging almost. Like I got there, and growing up in Ottawa, I was never a white kid. I wasn't the native kid. I was just like that third subsect of people. So I was just kind of like not really fit in with anyone, and I did everything that everyone else did. I played hockey, I played soccer, I played all the sports I possibly could. But it was just, I always just felt kind of outside of everything. And then when I got to Tokyo, it was everyone's exactly like me. Everyone was an outsider. Everyone just, didn't really fit in. And it felt great just to be around people like me, basically. There's just, friends one of my best friends, he was born in Mexico City and lived in the USSR and then moved to Venezuela. And, every 4 years he's making new friends. And one of my best friends is Canadian, had never lived in Canada until undergrad. So like it was, this crazy mishmash of people. And yeah, I mean, I absolutely loved it. It was nice to just kind of like fit in with everyone for the fact that I didn't fit in. So
What beer are we going to try next, Eric?
I think we'll do the Boom next.
The Boom? Okay.
Yeah. So I think one of the first things you'll notice is it's very West Coast.
Very West Coast.
Yeah, it's got that nice, Cascade character to it. Very, very malty, but I still think very well balanced. Super drinkable for fairly decently sized alcohol beer. It's really nice on a hot evening, such as tonight. And yeah, I mean our brewmaster again, he just loves this kind of beer. And so he convinced ownership that this is something we should have all year. And so they just were like, oh, okay, yeah, go for it. And so we got to brew up this beer, and it's definitely a staff favorite. It's nice and hoppy, still very malty, has a really nice head to it. Yeah, drinks really, really well for, pretty high up alcohol beer.
Yes, that's definitely very West Coast. I pick up a lot of resin note to it too, as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's heavy hopping in the kettle, which is pretty traditional for the West Coast IPAs.
Yep.
And then just a little tiny dry hop, which at the time of Kitchissippi is 11 years into the brewery being open, they had never dry hopped a beer, and I believe the Zany was the first one that was ever dry hopped, and it was a double dry hop, double IPA. And then this one was the second one, and it's just 5 kilograms of Cascade. That's it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So, any particular reason why they didn't dry hop for?
Yeah, it was, it was billed as like a British German style brewery. They didn't really want to get into dry hopping. Having clean, crisp drinking beers was a thing. Also, the fact that the tanks just don't have dry hop ports, which is very fun for dry hopping.
Yes, I can imagine that.
Yeah. So it's fun getting the hops in there in the little, like 2-inch opening, and I'm standing there just like, okay, please, please, please. Yeah. I'm happy that no one's around to watch me do
that. I can well imagine.
Yeah.
Can well imagine. Mike makes a point. West Coast IPAs have kind of fallen out of favor. What's your take on that?
I honestly don't understand why they have. I get the appeal of the hazy IPA. They're juicy, they're delicious. You can have a couple of them, and everyone can be either the same or different. Really depends how it's brewed. But I think it's more just people were kind of tired of bitter and just wanted to switch over to something different. It was, something new, something cool. It wasn't bitter. It was nice to drink on a hot summer day. Yeah, it's just, I think West Coast starting to come back more. Brewers are definitely enjoying West Coast beers. So it's nice to see more coming back on the market, just, for us to drink at least. And I know a lot of consumers are starting to come back around on their way of thinking. It's funny how beer drinking tends to always take the same curve of, you start off drinking the macro beers, and then you try this one beer and you go, oh, that's different. For me, that was actually Sam Adams. That was my aha beer, where I was like, hey, this isn't just yellow fizzy water. This is cool. And then, of course, naturally went into like the IPA range, and then followed the Belgian trend. and then got into hazy IPAs, and then kind of just moves right back into lagers again. And I think that people are kind of coming back around towards the traditional styles in the West Coast, and it's just fun. It's just fun to brew them. It's fun to drink them. So I'm happy with it.
What's your favorite style to brew?
My favorite style to brew is stout, actually. It's so my nickname at work is Dr. Thick Mash, because I tend to have thicker mashes than everybody else, much to the chagrin of my brewmaster German Phil. He prefers his 3.1 to 3.5, and it's got to be this and it's got to be that, and I tend to be a little bit on the thicker side of like, yeah, I'll do 1 to 2.5. It's just more fun. It's something different. And stouts are just I like watching the dark grain mix in with the light grain, and smelling the dark grain hitting it, and it just smells so nice in the morning. It's almost like having an espresso at 6 in the morning when I need another one. So yeah, it's just fun to watch it all meld together and then come out, and it's great.
So Katie says, when are you going to do the Dr. Thick Mash Stout?
I think I'll talk to the owners and see if they'll let me do that.
You definitely have to let us know if you release one like that, because we'll get an order in for it.
I definitely will.
Yeah. So in the stout realm, what's been your favorite stout to make?
I actually really like making tropical stouts because they're a little bit less roasty, a little bit lower alcohol, a lot more high drinkability. It tends to be not quite as bitter. So it's just that nice, almost like entry level stout kind of thing. When it comes to me, I just, as I like said, I enjoy my shower beers. Just like the Pilsner, just if you hop in the shower and have a beer after playing hockey, just have a beer in the shower. It's one of the best things you can do. But yeah, I mean, I went to Ireland back in 2017, 2018, I think. I got told by the owner of Big Rig, now would be a good time to take vacation if you want some. So I thought, oh, okay. So I guess I'm taking vacation. And it was right around the time of St. Paddy's Day. And I thought, I can't really say no to going to Dublin for St. Paddy's Day. So I flew over, spent a week just driving around Ireland by myself, having a great time. Visited a couple breweries. And the day before St. Paddy's Day, I went to Guinness. I figured that was a better day to do it than on St. Paddy's Day. Got my, certification on how to pour proper Guinness, and got my shirt that no longer fits me. It was just a lot of fun just to walk around. And it was actually that time when, I don't know if you remember this, the bar in Vancouver had poured a Guinness with no head on it. And so there was a bar in Dublin that was saying, well, if you have a Canadian passport, come here and we'll pour you a proper Guinness for free. So naturally, I walked over there and showed them my passport and got my free Guinness. And you ran into a bunch of other Canadians and some Americans. And there was this woman in there from Minneapolis. And she was saying, oh, it's too bad I can't get one. We're basically Canadians. So I marched right up to the bartender and I said, she's from Minneapolis. She's basically a Canadian. She deserves a free Guinness. And he went, all right, poured her a Guinness and poured it right across the bar for her. And yeah, it was one of the last things I remember from that day. So.
Well, that's fantastic that you got that. That sounds like a trip of a lifetime.
Yeah, it was. It was just one of those trips where afterwards I got back and went, that was great. I don't think I'll ever do anything like that again, but.
Yeah. So if I was to sneak into your playlist right now, what would I find on it?
Probably there would be a lot of Luke Combs. There would be some 50 Cent, probably some Venga boys, kind of all over the place. This weekend, my fiance and I went down to Prince Edward County for the weekend, and the entire way down, we listened to Venga Boys, Ace of Base, Britney Spears, Backstreet Boys. You know, every once in a while, you'd throw in a country song and like some Foo Fighters and stuff like that. But yeah, at work, it's quite often Venga Boys. That is kind of what we listen to the most.
That's fantastic. Very eclectic collection there.
Yep.
Do you have a favorite country artist?
I'm pretty partial to Eric Church. He's one of the ones I've liked the most. I grew up with Clint Black. My dad listened to that all the time. So you know, for me, it's not Christmas until I listen to Clint Black Christmas album. So
Isn't it amazing, those things from your childhood that just stick with you?
I know, it's crazy. Even when we were in Tokyo, we used to go crazy for it. We'd, you know, have it blaring and people would walk past the house and what is going on over there?
I know what I wanted to ask you about your trip to Tokyo. So you did wrestling, Roman Greco style. Were you ever allowed to try sumo?
Not officially. Although being the largest guy in school, everyone thought it'd be funny to try and sumo wrestling. But no, it was, you know, sumo over there is a culture. It's a lifestyle. Like sumo wrestlers are like gods over there. Like literally,
Yeah.
They live together. They train together. They eat massive amounts of food together. It's just crazy. Like I remember one time I walked past a sumo training gym once, and it was insane. It was so clean, and everything was put away. Everyone was way bigger than I was, and there was just food everywhere too. I was surprised. And it wasn't even like, it was like pizzas and burgers and then, you know, they're obviously their protein shakes too, but it was everything you could think of in there.
Wow. Which beer are we going to try next?
I think we'll do the Ala Deriv.
Okay.
Yeah, the Boathouse.
Now you mentioned that you have friends that work there.
Yep. So one of the owners and the brewer is actually one of my old classmates from Niagara. And so when he was there, he was working for Castle, and then he opened up this brewery over in Gatineau. And anytime I can plug his brewery, I will, because he's one of the nicest people I've ever met in my life. He makes some of the best beer I've ever had in my life. And yeah, it's just such a nice spot too. Just right by the water, really laid back feel. They have always interesting beers and really good food, and it's not that far from Ottawa. I mean, I'm in the south end of Ottawa, and everything takes me 20 minutes to get anywhere. So you know, it's nice to just be able to head over there and see a friend of mine and drink his beer.
No, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's a really nice hazy IPA. You know, he's not super trendy. Doesn't really jump on the trends too much, but this one he wanted to try, and I think he made a really good example of it. It sits right around there with the other Ottawa hazy IPAs. I think we tend to have a little bit higher finishing gravity, a little bit sweeter. Obviously, a lot of hops.
Yep.
So, and I know he uses the escarpment yeast. So, got that nice yeast from Guelph.
Scarman does a good job, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I like that back end peach finish.
Yeah.
something that I usually catch right at the front end, but this time it's the back end. It's really nice,
Mhm.
very smooth. I could see where that would be dangerous on a hot day on a patio.
Can confirm.
Can confirm it. So, have you ever had a chance to do a collab brew with them?
I haven't had a chance to do a collab with him yet. It's definitely something that I would like to do in the future. Working on a few collabs right now as well with other breweries around Ontario. Um, Doing a collab with a different province is a little bit more difficult, but yeah, in Ontario, there's a bunch I would like to work with.
So, what's next for Eric?
Um, Working on you know getting some going. I have some ideas of my own and kind of thinking about opening a spot and getting them going and you know just yeah, work with some interesting people and figure out from there kind of what we're gonna do.
Going to stay in the Ottawa area?
Yep.
There's lots of space in there.
Yeah, there's lots of space around Ottawa that hasn't been tapped yet. So I mean in the city we have, I mean last time I heard was 33, but I'm sure we're closer to 50 at this point. So the city itself is pretty well taken over. But yeah, I mean, there's lots of space around Ottawa, even in the Gatineau side. Um, Lots of small little towns over there, lots of small little towns over here that are interesting places, and they definitely are looking for local products that they can support. So,
What's your favorite craft bar or restaurant in Ottawa?
so there's my favorite is this little place out in Finley Creek, just south of Ottawa, called Hunter Public House, and they bring in it's mostly stuff from Ottawa. There's occasional stuff from outside of Ottawa, but I mean the people there are just phenomenal. Um, really good service every time we go there. They have a really nice, cool little patio. During COVID, what they did was they turned all of the patio seats into like wood cabins almost. So they had heaters inside, you had blankets. So even when it was minus 30 outside, you could sit outside and have some food and a drink. And yeah, it was just so much fun being out there. Um, Conveniently, my mom lives very close, so just drop the dog off for a bit and head over there for some food and some drinks. And yeah, nice little spot. Then there's always Bar Lupulus down in Westboro. They just always have the most interesting beers in the city. I mean, they get stuff from the States, bless you, England, all over Ontario, Canada. I mean, they get interesting stuff from everywhere. It's so much fun just going down there and then just sitting at the bar. Well, when I would go out to the bar and just talk with the bartender and see what was new and try it. Yeah, those are probably my two favorites.
A couple of notes there saying thank you for picking up the beer in Gatineau for us. We
Yeah,
appreciate
no problem.
the extra effort there. So
It gave me another excuse to go over there and hang out with them. So I mean, yeah, I'm always down.
well, you did mention that when you offered it, it was be a chance to go visit your best friend. Who's your role model?
I mean, there's a bunch for me. Um, Adam Pines, who now works at Small Pony, he he was one of the guys who really steered me towards work going to the college. He was the guy that I actually talked at for 2 hours when he was at the clock tower, and he looked at me and he was just like, I see you have passion for this. I mean, I think you need to go for it. And then the day of the first time I was in there, I was digging out the mash, literally standing inside of the mash tun with a shovel, digging it out into a bag. And he looked at me, he's like, "Oh, how's it going?" I said, "I love this." And so he's, one of those guys who's just always supportive of me. Even when I was at the college, he would always text me, call me, being like, "Hey man, how's it going?" So yeah, just, such a nice guy. Been working in brewing for probably close to 20 years now. Started way back when Brick was around. Yeah, so he's definitely the closest for me. Tanner at Salter Street is, another big influence on me. He was the brewer's assistant at the college when I first started, and I remember my very first brew day. I was sitting there and the steam wasn't working on my kettle, and I was just sitting there moping like, oh man, this is terrible. I can't believe this happening to me. Well, woe was me kind of thing. He comes over and he goes, who cares? Beer's gonna be fine. Just have fun. Like, just stop being moping. Just enjoy yourself. I was like, yeah, that's right. Why would I do that? And yeah, he's one of those guys who he and I talk about whiskey all the time because we're both super into whiskey, and it's a lot of fun just hanging out with him. And his girlfriend was in my class, so she's one of my best friends as well. And so I get to hang out with two of my best friends whenever I get to see them, and yeah, it's awesome.
So you're a whiskey man. What's your favorite whiskey?
I'm kind of bougie when it comes to mine. I really like the Macallan 18. It's my favorite.
So you're a Scotch man.
Definitely a Scotch man. Yeah.
You and I will have to talk because that's always been my game. Scotch.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There's a Scotch bar that's not far from me, and they know me now. Every time I walk in, they're like, "Oh, you're the guy who likes this one." I'm like, "Yep, yes, I am." So I was like, "Oh, well, just give me something new this time. Let's try something different." And I like going up and down the scale. I like peaty. I like sweet. Just really depends on the day. Some days I'm leaning towards the peaty. Some days I'm leaning towards the $200 a glass kind of Scotch, and those are the worst days because I cannot afford that.
No, the next time I'm in Ottawa, you and I will definitely have to hang out.
Definitely.
It'll be fun. And if you're ever down this way, I inherited the open bottles of Scotch from Kickoff when we closed. So I have a substantial collection right now that I'm slowly working through.
That sounds terrifying and amazing all at the same time.
You have to be disciplined.
Yeah. I've learned that the hard way a few times.
What would I find sitting on your night table in the form of a book right now?
So right now I have Eat a Peach by Dave Chang. I'm pretty bad at finishing one book at a time though. So the other one I have is Dream First, Act Later by Ellen Bennett. Sorry, the book's actually right next to me. So yeah, it's I love food. I've always loved food. Dave Chang, I feel very connected to him. Like I have some very similar ways of thinking. Just that upbringing of just kind of being off and kind of being different than everyone else. People, like going over to his house and saying his place smelled weird. That's stuff that's familiar, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other one, the Ellen Bennett book, it's about just going for it, just doing it, like just figure out what you want to do and do it and then worry about it later kind of thing. She opened up a business to make what's it called? Aprons for chefs. And so instead of just using the white material, she was like, oh, I'm going to use jean material and I'm going to cater it to how chefs actually want it. So, it's really good to learn that kind of stuff and see that you've got to go for it and just do it.
Yeah, I'm just reading the chat line here for a second. Kenji Alt Lopez, Food Lab Tome. Is you familiar with that?
No, I'm not.
Katie, unmute yourself. Talk to us a little bit. Well, guess she's not going to talk to us. We'll have to wait.
Hi, sorry. Uh, we got that book as a gift from a friend who also loves to cook, and my husband loves to cook. It's a very large hardcover book where I would sum it up as saying the basic premise of it is Kenji does all these science experiments to figure out the best technique and the best way to make things. And sometimes the classic way of doing things is not the best way and also not the easiest. So he comes up with all these interesting ways that are better and often easier. So I highly recommend it. That's my very short, it's my very short explanation for my comment. And I subscribe to his YouTube videos because he does these, I guess, point of view type videos where he gets up in the middle of the night and wants to cook, and he puts a GoPro on his head and he'll make something. And just watching him go through steps of making something and watching him screw up every so often, it's just really informative. It really is. It makes you feel better. And at the same time, it's really educational because I think that cooking is a lot about technique, and you don't even have to do it perfect. Like there's some things that are important and some things that aren't. And his 2-minute mayonnaise is life-changing.
Thanks, Katie.
Nice.
He also recommended, by the way, Eric, that when we're together, ask me to pair your dessert with a scotch, because that's what Jay used to do. Her husband would come in and he'd have a dessert and he goes, "What scotch should I be drinking with this?"
That sounds amazing. Like, yeah, I mean, that food pairing is one of those things that like I fell in love with when I was at the college, and just figuring out like, all right, take it with beer. Like this beer has these elements to it. What can you pair it with? And there's just so many things that you could go with. Like you could have an IPA, you can go with a stir fry. You can go with like chicken wings. You can go, it's just, the possibilities are endless, and you can explain why it would work. And yeah, I mean, it's one of my best friends from the college, Corey, he works at Chronicle. He was a chef at Treadwell, which is, one of the high-end restaurants down in Niagara. So he's one of those guys who just understands layering flavors. And I would just sit there and just listen to him talk half the time, and I was like, I don't know, this tastes good with a pretzel. I can't really tell you why, but it does. And he would just be like, well, this aspect of this and this characteristic, and I'd be like, yeah, I get it, yeah.
It's amazing to listen to people when they talk about that stuff, though.
Mm-hmm.
Because there is such a science to it, and yet it's an art.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's people always mention to me how they think that brewing is all like baking, and it is. I mean, you need to have the right ratios and stuff, but I tend to say it's more like cooking, because in cooking you can try things, and you can change the ingredients and change the ratios and stuff and see what comes out with it. Whereas in baking, is if you put in too much salt, then you screwed up that bread. If you put in a little bit too much salt in baking, you can cover it up with something else and you can change it, right? And so baking, it's very rigid. Cooking, it's a little more free form. You can think of what you want it to taste like and then make it get there.
Yeah. So what's the most interesting beer you've made from that perspective?
I made a tiramisu pastry stout with one of my friends at Ridge Rock. It was incredibly inefficient. It was incredibly sweet. We used stupid amounts of ladyfingers in the mash, and I used insane amounts of coffee beans in secondary, but it tasted like a tiramisu.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm like David Hussey. You got my attention there.
Yeah, it was just one of those ones where I just texted my buddy over at Ridge Rock, and I was like, hey, let's make something. And he goes, all right. let's do something really crazy and stupid. Like, I'm all for this. So yeah, just sat down one day and came up with it. And yeah, I mean, it was just so much fun.
I cannot picture how many ladyfingers you would have had to have put in a batch to get that flavor.
Yeah, it was, I think we had spent something about like $300 on ladyfingers alone. So
Yeah, so the beer was like $17 for a 365 ml can, right?
I think it ended up being about, well, we lost lots of money on it, but I think it ended up being about like $8 a can. So it wasn't too bad.
No, that wasn't bad, but you
Yeah.
didn't make any money.
Oh God, no. No. That was not a money making adventure at all.
Yeah. You want to talk to me about the fourth beer?
Yeah, so we're doing the jam hands, I think.
Yeah, I'm not sure if anybody got their hands on that one.
Okay.
I know I didn't, but
Um,
let's talk about it anyways.
Yeah, so Small Pony, sour brewery here in Ottawa. Like I mentioned before, Adam Pines works there now, but I was working at Big Rig when Sean opened up Small Pony right next door, and it was, one of those moments where I walked in there and I looked at it and went, "There's barrels everywhere, and there's like one fermenter, and what the hell is going on here?" And yeah, it was just lots of fun. I got to work with Sean a little bit, help him make some beers and stuff. And the Jam Hands is I think one of my favorite ones. They do it every year. It's super fruity, so it kind of balances out the massive amounts of acid that are in it. And it's, most Small Pony beers, if you've had them, it's very mouth puckering. And the Jam Hands is just so much fun because I'm a sucker for raspberries, and anytime raspberries and anything, I want it. And so every year they do a new batch of it, and every year they let me know when it's being done so I can come over and drink it with them. And oh, it's so good.
That sounds like a great time.
Yep. Oh yeah. I know anytime I go over to Small Pony, I'll text my fiance and say, "Oh, I'll be here for 20 minutes." And then 2 hours later, I'll say, "Okay, I'm on my way home now." They're like, "Yeah, I knew that was going to happen." So,
And if she doesn't go, and I'll see you in a couple more hours.
nope. Luckily, she knows 2 hours is about the most I'll do. Yeah. If she's with us, we're there for an entire day. So, yeah.
Yeah. So you guys did your first Indigenous Brew Crew beer on the 20th of June 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And you had to do that remotely at that point. What was
Yeah.
it like brewing with your two friends remotely on a Zoom call?
It was pretty weird, because we didn't really discuss when we were going to match in and all that stuff. So I was pretty well done boiling by the time we started our Zoom call, which, I mean, I'm one of those guys who I like to get it going early, and I like to finish my day early. So, I'm in at work at 6 and I'm done by 2 or 4 or 5, depending on the day. But yeah, I'm an early guy. I like getting everything done early. And it was interesting talking to them about our brews and everything. And because I did a brown, I think Seguin had done an IPA. I don't remember what Mark had done.
Mexican lager, I believe. I think I read that in one of his interviews.
Okay. Yeah, I couldn't remember exactly which one. But
Yeah.
we also had planned on doing another beer, trying to use some local ingredients or some more indigenous ingredients for our next one. And I came up with the idea of using wild rice. And I was the only one who didn't get wild rice for the next beer. So that was kind of embarrassing. But yeah, I mean, the first one, it was weird. It was kind of cool because it was my first time doing a Zoom, I think, at that point. Because we beer didn't shut down during COVID. We just, if anything, got more busy. So that was, I think, one of my first. I had to download Zoom on my phone for the first time, and learn what this thing was. And yeah, it was weird talking to people different locations, but also kind of cool. And yeah, it was yeah, just nice to meet them as well, because I hadn't actually met them. I'm going to say face to face, but it wasn't really face to face because it was over computer. But
So how many beers have you guys done since then?
we've done, so we did that one. We did another one in the fall. We did one in the winter, and then there was a Celebrating Sisters project.
Now, Celebrating Sisters was in conjunction with Ren's Be Better, Do Better, right?
Yep. Yeah. So we teamed up with Ren, and it was just a project to raise funds for Indigenous women, hopefully for helping out some, Indigenous women who were in need of help, raising a little bit of awareness towards missing and murdered Indigenous women's. Just, women are the backbone of our society, and we just wanted to support them and uplift them as much as we could. And that was, we're brewers. We can't really do it any other way. That's what we know. That's what we know how to do. And luckily enough, we had a good following behind us. We had a bunch of other breweries jump on board with us, and raised, God, a couple $1,000s at least per brewery kind of thing. I know that Dominion had, I think they had raised about 4,000, then donated another 1,000, and Kitchissippi had raised about the same amount. So it was nice just, having some people in my own backyard and friends of mine. And Big Rig did one recently too. A couple weeks ago, they packaged theirs, and it's in bottles now. And yeah, it was nice to see the community coming around and just kind of supporting myself and my friends, and understanding that it was about, the people who need it, not us. So.
Okay. You're happy with the results. You had approximately 45, I think, breweries join in this time around?
It ended up being a bit less.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, after we had that big blow up over the GLB situation, we had some breweries back out. They were a little bit concerned. We were actually about 5 minutes away from pulling the plug on the entire project to begin with. We, saw the backlash and did our best to try and do damage control. And Chief Ladybird, she's a badass. she was taking so much heat, and completely undeserved for what happened. And so we, just supported her, and she ended up going for a walk, and she was walking around, and then she came back to her house, and the chief of her reserve was there, and he looked at her and he said, "You got to keep going. You can't stop." And her dad looked at her and said, "Yeah, fuck the haters, keep going." And I was on a chat with Ren and Mark and Seguin and my sister, and I don't know, there's some of the people there, and I was like, "Guys, this isn't about us. This isn't about the beer. It's about the people." And at the end of the day, I don't care if I had to go myself. We were finishing this, and I'm happy we did. I think we're gonna do it again next year, and yeah, it was incredibly tough, and I don't think I slept for a week, but definitely worth it.
Are you comfortable discussing the GLB situation with us?
Yeah, so what happened was they had contacted a healing lodge in Toronto and asked them to come down for the brew day, which, totally cool. And then I asked the healing lodge, would it be okay if you did a smudge? And so they're like, yeah, we'll totally do a smudge. And I mean, for people who don't know, smudge is something that some people take extremely seriously. Some people are a little bit more relaxed about it. The smudge is all about just, making sure that it's a clean, healthy space. And so there was a lot of reaction to that particular aspect of it. And so GLB took a lot of heat for that. And, you know, we came out saying we supported GLB and everything they did. Personally, I don't think they did anything wrong. You know, the Healing Lodge had said we are okay with this, and it was something they wanted to do. And when it comes down to it, it's, you know, it's a touchy subject in the Indigenous community, and you're never going to be right, no matter what you do. So for me, it was more about just, you know, breaking through that wall and starting up the conversation and getting everyone's understanding that, you know, there is more to alcohol than just getting drunk. Like, there's a reason we're doing it. It's a reason I've decided to make it my career. It's a language to me. It's something that I understand. It's something that I can communicate through. So yeah, and it was, you know, tough for them, but at the same time, I think that they had a lot of support through it all, not just from us, but I mean, not even just their consumers, but other Indigenous communities coming up and saying, guys, this is fine. This is something that can happen. Like, it doesn't have to be this one small little thing. So
Yeah, I remember reading about it. There was a lot of kerfuffle around it. Feelings were hurt. My friends in Six Nations informed me that they were just kind of like, we don't get this. Yes, it's a sacred ceremony. They were mistaken to have published the picture the way they did, but people make mistakes.
Yep. Yeah, and I mean, we came out saying, you know what, we made a mistake. They made a mistake. That's how you learn, right?
That's
one thing that Ren always says. She's constantly making mistakes and trying to get better. And, you know, we're no different.
The important is the lesson that you learn.
Exactly.
Yeah. Eric, I want to thank you for taking time to share your story with us.
Yeah, no
Truly
problem.
appreciate that. And as the Indigenous Brew Crew moves forward, I hope you keep us in mind. I as long as Beers with Bills is operating, we will staunchly support you.
Thank you.
So, and on behalf of everybody, thank you. Remind everybody, you do need to let me know if you are planning on attending the live patio release of the beer next week in the collab with Wellington. And